Well, all right, fam, welcome back to the channel. Today we got the Camaro, and what we're gonna be working on is putting the hood back on. I think it's time to actually get a hood on it. We're really not doing anything to the engine right now, so we're gonna go ahead and put the hood on. Now, the reason why, if you don't recall, that we don't have the hood on is because we have the intercooler here for the turbo. You can see how it's piped here. In front of the radiator, so it's in the way of our latching system for the hood. So I had to cut all that out, and I'm gonna have to do something about it, either engineer a new bracket to release it, or put hood pins on. So I do have some hood pins on the shelf. Actually, let me just pull those out real quick. So we have these here, the Arrow Catch. They're like a carbon fiber, fake carbon fiber, I think. Lockable hood pin. So, if you can see that there without the glare. We have this option too. But I'm gonna see if I can fab something up to use the original hood latch, even if I'm also using the lockable hood latches. I still want to have a backup to those. So if I could get this factory one to work again, have a release system for it, that'd be probably the most optimal. That way I have redundancy on my latching system for my hood. But we'll see. First thing to start out with, we're going to go ahead and grab the hood and get it put back on its hinges. So that's back here. We're going to pass through the boneyard here where we keep all our old relics. So this is a small block Chevy, and this is the head off the Audi, the one that we just replaced. And these are my hoods. So I got 3 hoods back here. They're all for the Camaro. I got 2 cowl induction hoods, and then the stock one here in the middle and the yellow. So I think we're going to put the first one on because I'm not going to dig through here. I'm just going to grab the first one and move that up towards the front of the garage so we can go ahead and get that thing mounted up. All right, fam, so we got the hood here now in front of the garage. We're going to get ready to put that on the Camaro. Now I'm going to be doing this myself, so hoods are pretty heavy. This is usually pretty difficult, but I have a system that I use to get it done, and I'm going to show you that now. What I usually do is make sure the hood hinges are obviously mounted in the vehicle, but I like to put them in the upward position like that on both sides. All right, and then what we're going to do is grab the hood kind of from the front center there, lift it up, carry it here to the center of the car, and then lean it against both hood hinges. And at this point of the hood hinge here, we're just going to tilt it up and into the position, and then reach around and put our bolts in. So that's how I do it. It usually works for me pretty well. So let me go ahead and jump to that. And then afterwards, we'll take a look at the latching system and see what we can do to fab something up to get the latch to release. All right, fam, as you can see, I got the hood put on the hinges. We got it bolted down. I got it roughly aligned on all the gaps, so that way it doesn't hit any of the other panels when I close it. But one thing we did not consider was if we're gonna have hood clearance with the LS swap. This is the first time the hood's been on with this configuration. So let's take a look and see what we're dealing with here. It is a cowl hood, but there's like some sheet metal underneath too, so you don't get the full use of the cowl. Hopefully we don't have to trim anything. It's a little hard to see, but it looks like there's going to barely be enough clearance. Of course, I haven't closed it all the way though, because we have this hood latch that we have to deal with here. So we're going to jump to that. I'm going to go ahead and start by pulling out the grill so we can see underneath, and we're going to see if we could fabricate something in order to release the hood latch when we close the hood. So let me go ahead and get to taking the grill out, and we'll go ahead and look at this latching system, see what we come up with. All right, fam, let me show you where we're at now. So we got the grill off. We're able to see the underneath of the hood latch assembly. You can see it there. That's the secondary latch, and then there's a primary sprung latch in the center. But as you can see, the brackets removed. That comes down and has a linkage for releasing the hood here at the grill. So that's been removed because we put the intercooler in here for the turbo. Now I did save the old linkage, as you can see that there. So we're going to try to reuse this somehow in order to reinstall and fabricate up a new hood latch release. So we're going to do that now. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is take some square stock such as this and then build it off of this hood latch bracket here that the hood latch is mounted to, and then drill a hole here in the side in order to essentially put it for that eyelet here in the brackets itself so it could pivot off of it, and then mount it somewhat like that there in here. And then I'm going to have to figure out how to bridge this gap between this strike plate here and this latch assembly, because there's going to be about a 2-inch gap in here that we'll have to figure out how to fill. So, and then we're going to have to shorten it because, as you can see, it's going to stick quite a ways out of the grill. So we're going to take it here and shorten this up. Again, we're going to take some square stock. We got plenty of it here in different sizes. And then we're going to modify it so it has a pivot point. Once we get it here on its pivot point, then we'll figure out the rest of the mechanics involved in releasing it. So let me get to doing that. I'm going to take this stuff here and put it on our welding table and then get started welding this out, cutting and fabricating up a new bracket. As you can see, I got a janky welding table, so if any of you guys want to sponsor me for a welding table, I'll be greatly appreciated. Or if there's any sponsors that want to pick me up, holla at your boy, because I could definitely use some sponsors. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and fire up the welder in the grinder and get the cutting and welding. All right, fam, so we got our edges cleaned up here. We're gonna go ahead and mock it up just a bit by hand, just to see where we're landing. But what I can see is I think there's going to be an issue with the lever once we start actuating it, that it might run into a clearance issue here with this bracket that we're about to weld in. So I think what I'm gonna do is clearance it off just a bit here, maybe at an angle like that, in order to leave enough room here for it to actuate. All right, so let me do that. I'm gonna roughly put the hinge around this area here. I don't know how I want to do this. I want to radius it like that. This is the section we're working with. We're going to go ahead and notch it up top to leave room for our actuation of our linkage here where it engages the latch. And then I'm going to somehow cut it off here and finish it out with a bolt hole in this general area for the hinge to pivot off of. So let me go ahead and start working on that on our welding table. All right, so I'm gonna take it in so you guys can see what we've done so far. We went ahead and bent all those tabs down. As you can see, I got as much of a radius as I could there. So hopefully you could see what I was trying to do there, just to make it have more of a custom look. And then this one here, I folded down as well. I'm gonna weld it here at this 45-degree angle, where it's going to mount up to the existing structure inside the vehicle. And then I'll put a bolt hole here that it can pivot on. So I'm going to go ahead and start welding up all these seams, and we'll drill our hole and start playing with it inside the vehicle. Hopefully we can weld it out here and start working off our hinge system. So let me jump to that now and weld this out. All right, fam, we got everything here on the bench. I'm gonna show you what we got. We got this custom made bracket that we just made here. It's gonna be a adapter bracket to mount to our original hood latch inside the Camaro. So, and we got a bolt here that we're gonna use, and 2 washers. Now these washers came with a TV wall mounted kit. If you ever get one of those, you get bolts, nuts, washers, spacers, all kinds of stuff. Keep all that stuff because you never know when you're going to use it. And in this case, we're going to use it here as thrust washers here. So we'll put a washer there along with our nut. And then we're going to put one on the other side here as well. And so there you go. Now you have a thrust washer to keep it from thrusting side to side. And then not only that, but it's nylon, so it's going to help prevent it from making any squeaking and rattling noises here on this bracket. So what we're going to do now is weld this in the vehicle here to where you can pull a lever and then it actuates this part of the linkage and opens up the hood latch. So we'll still have to try to figure out how to fill that gap there because we are extending it out at least 2 inches. So we're going to have to figure that part out once we have this mocked up in the vehicle. So let me go ahead and weld this in. I may either tack weld it or fully weld it out. I think for now I'll just tack weld it to make sure everything works, and then we'll take it from there. So let me go ahead and weld this in. All right, fam, so we got our release lever mounted on our new bracket here. I don't have the nylon washers in yet because it's hot and I don't want to melt them, so I'll put that in later. But what I got to do is figure out how to keep this bracket from hitting our intercooler, because we have to put a stop here to hold it from reaching the intercooler. So I'm gonna have to figure that out, and then also here how I'm going to lever this system here in order to make that latch release. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to modify our stock linkage somehow to bridge that gap there. All right, so we're essentially going to take our lever now, and then I gotta put in a rod somewhere here. So I'm gonna drill a hole and use this bolt and weld this bolt into the hole. But right now I'm gonna put a hole and get my adjustment in the car first before I weld it. And I'll probably weld it in the car so I know it's aligned right. So let me go ahead and drill this hole in this original bracket. So there we go, got our hole. Our bolt would basically go like that, and then we're going to adjust it first and weld it, or we may use some nuts here, I'm not sure, and like lock nut it down. I'm not sure what we're going to do there yet. I may just weld it, so we'll get to that once we determine what we're going to do with the end here. All right, so this is what we have basically. We just put this on here. Now we're gonna go back in the vehicle and see where we want this to be mounted up. And then we'll either weld it here or put a screw in a nut on this end. But essentially that's how it's gonna be. It's gonna pivot here, and then that's gonna push forward. I don't like how it dives down. I'm not liking that. Probably should use a heim joint, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to see if this works. If not, I'll have to rework it later. But let me go see how it looks in the vehicle, and then I'll probably just weld this up on the end here. All right, back on the bench here, and we have the bracket that we were mocking up inside the vehicle. We have our plate now that's gonna be kind of a push plate against the hinge assembly. And then I'm just gonna weld it here. I'm not gonna make it adjustable. I'm just gonna weld it out and then grind this top off, and that'll pretty much do it for that. And I can tighten down the bolt here with those thrust washers, and then work on a stop to make sure that it doesn't hit the intercooler. So let me go ahead, and I think I'm just going to weld this all out, test it, and then weld the bracket onto the frame inside of the radiator support, and then I should be done with this. Well, all right, fam, as you can see from the video, we went ahead and welded everything up. And then off camera, what I did is I painted. This is all painted and cured. I got the radiator support painted, the stop for our hood latch release. And then we also have the pivot point painted that we fabbed up earlier. So all this is done here, ready for assembly. Let's go over to the cart and take a look at our newly modified release lever. So what we've done here is shortened it up 2 inches on the end here so it doesn't protrude out of the grill. Retain the factory look and location for the most part. We also retain the rubber on the end here, so it does have the factory coating on the pole itself. So that was important to me to retain that factory look. Another thing we did is built this push rod here where it's going to engage with the actual latch release. So we're going to go ahead and get that lubed up. We'll lube up our pivot points and then get this thing installed in the Camaro. So I'm going to jump to that now, get this all installed, and we'll take a look and see how it works. real quick, I'm gonna take you guys off the tripod to show you what we've done. I went ahead and installed it, as you saw from the time lapse. I have a piece of rubber I installed here as well for our stop so we don't get a clunk when we release the lever. So that seemed to have come out pretty well. I do like that. I lubed up all the pivot points and all the places where we're going to have friction so that it has nice smooth action. And because of this stop that we put in up here, we now have the clearance here to keep this from hitting the intercooler. So that's perfect. I could fit almost a finger in there. So that's plenty of room. And it's a nice factory look because this is all factory here. This lever is even sprung just like the factory. And again, we retain the rubber on the end, so I have the factory feel when you touch it. So all in all, it came out really well. Let's go ahead and put the grill in, see how the fitment is there. Now I'm just gonna set it in here. All right, fam, so we got the grill back in. As you can see, I left just enough room to get your finger behind it to pull it and release it, and it doesn't protrude out of the grill too much. I think it looks really, really good. Yeah, I cut it down just right. I think it's gonna blend in really well and not be too noticeable. And you can see back behind the grill there, the light's just right. You could see our work back there with our release lever. That looks good from here. It looks factory fresh. So I do like that. Now we're gonna go ahead and give it a pull and see how it works. And it releases just perfect. And there's not a lot of noise when you release it. It doesn't run into anything. Now keep in mind, the grill is loose, so it is moving around a little bit, but we're gonna get that re-secured a little later. I'm not gonna do that in this video, but let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how it closes with the grill off. All right, so now you could see it. You could see when you pull on it, it's gonna push that push rod into the hood latch and cause it to release. Let's take a look at it now. Perfect, and then when we release it, it doesn't hit our intercooler, so that works just perfect. And again, one last look with the grill on. There you go. All right, fam, so that's gonna wrap it up for another video. I do wanna take the time to thank you guys all for watching. And if you watched to the very end, I do truly appreciate it because it does help the channel. And if you like what you saw today, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and consider subscribing and hit that post notification bell to be notified of my next episode because I do drop bangers all the time. And until next time, stay good, family. Peace.